ICQ Podcast episode 244, Friedrichshafen Ham Radio 2017 Roundup. Well, hello fellow amateur ham radio enthusiasts, and welcome to this, our 244th episode of the ICQ Amateur Ham Radio Podcast, supported by Philip Heckingbottom, VK6 Alpha Delta Foxtrot, and our monthly and annual subscription donors. In this episode, Martin M1MRB W9ICQ is joined by Chris Mike 0 Tango Charlie Hotel, Dan Kilo Bravo 6 November Uniform, and Ed DD5 Lima Papa to discuss the latest amateur ham radio news. Myself, Colin M6BOY, rounds up the news in brief, and this episode's feature is our roundup of the Friedrichshafen Ham Radio 2017 show with the interviews that we conducted there. Well, as always, it's our donors from our listeners that help keep us advert-free for the podcast show, and this episode, along with our monthly and annual subscription donors, is a donation from Philip Heckingbottom, VK6 Alpha Delta Foxtrot, and he tells us that he thought it was about time to send in another donation, and please accept this with his appreciation of all of our efforts. Most of his time is currently taken up operating the occasional SOTA and regular WWFF activations. However, recently he's lost interest in DXing, but the SOTA WWFF has given him a new surge of interest. He tells us as well that he's considering heading off to Friedrichshafen sometime in the future. Was hoping to get it this year, but didn't quite make it. He said Ed will understand the problems about getting passports and Australian citizenship, etc. I'd say certainly your note was one of the most entertaining notes I've read in a while, Phil. So thank you very much for your note there. It's a wonderful news of you helping us out, and hopefully, you never know, Phil, we'll catch you at the 2018 show in Friedrichshafen next year. If you'd like to help keep us advert free, all you need to do is to visit www.icqpodcast.com/donate, where anything you send our way is always greatly appreciated. Well, now we head over to our news roundtable this episode with Martin, Chris, Dan and Ed, as they discuss the latest amateur ham radio news, including YOTA 2017 summer event, and how a 12-year-old has completed the Wainwright challenge. Hope you enjoy.
Well, hi guys, and welcome to episode 244 of the ICQ Podcast News Roundtable. Tonight, I'm joined by Mr. Chris Howard M0TCH.
Good evening.
Hi, Chris. Hi, Chris. Mr. Dan Romanchik, KB6NU.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Hi, Dan, and good to have you on. And it's been a while, but 4 weeks goes by very quick, doesn't it?
It does.
It does. And evening to Mr. Ed Durrant, TD5LP, where we last saw you in Germany, mate.
Yep, evening all. Guten Abend.
Guten Abend. I think the thing that got me in Germany, Ed, is when we sat in the press centre and you'd had a chat with somebody and you looked direct at me and you launched off into this long German length of German audio at me, words. And I looked at you blank, and you suddenly realised you were talking in German and not English. And that
was quite funny, actually. I remember that, didn't you?
Yeah, I don't know if it was the press centre, but anyway, wherever it was. That's right. I was switching between talking to somebody in German, somebody English, somebody in German, and I got a step wrong somewhere.
Yeah.
But in my brain, it was all making sense, you know. So I guess I must be all right with the German language now, better than I used to be.
Yeah. But I mean, don't get me wrong, Ed. It was fun. I found it funny, but it was good. I looked at you blank, and let's say
I was looking at you, and I was looking at you thinking, why isn't he answering?
Yeah. Anyway, let's start the news stories. YOTA 2017 summer event is happening at Gilwell Park. This Saturday, people will be arriving on the 5th of August. It runs to the 12th of August, and there'll be 80 people there from 30 different countries, and they'll be operating with the call sign GB17 YOTA, so quite a long call sign, but various people will be operating. So what do you think, Ed?
Oh, this actually links back nicely to the comments about Friedrichshafen, because the flag was handed over at Friedrichshafen between Austria from last year and the UK this year. And this is great. I mean, it's been going, I don't know, it's 5 or 6 years, maybe longer now, in each different country in Region 1. It's a great way of promoting youth in the hobby. And the people involved, from what I've heard the last few years, have a great deal of fun, build probably lifetime friendships. And I think it's great that it's actually at the Scout Centre, the main Scout Centre in the UK at Gilwell Park this year, because they're very well equipped and prepared there. And I believe you're going to be visiting them, Martin.
I believe we are. Yeah, Martin Rothwell and myself will be there on Sunday the 6th. Hopefully we'll get a good report for you in the next episode. That's certainly the plan. So, that's what we're hoping to do. Dan, I know that this is a Region 1 thing. I believe there are some US amateurs going, and hopefully maybe your side of the pond or your region will start doing something very similar soon.
Well, this makes me wish I was a youngster again.
Me too, Dan. Me too.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like they're going to have a blast, and I frequently communicate with Sterling Coffey, N0SSC, who was there last year, and he really enjoyed it. And it'll be fun. It'll be fun and good for all those kids.
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing, because the best part about our hobby, in my book, is the international politeness, the friendship, and communicating with people. And there's some very, very interesting people, and it's nice to share nice things around the world with each and every one of them, and bringing them all together and getting them to do lots of different events. So that's good. Chris, what do you think?
I think it's fantastic. It's going to be absolutely, for a week, it's going to be absolutely action-packed. They're going to be going to Bletchley Park. They're going to go to the Science Museum. They're going to be obviously operating up at the event there. What's it called? Gilwell Park. Thank you. They're going to be building kits. They're going to be doing direction finding. They're going to be doing special event station operating. They're going to have talks from various people that are going to come along. We'll come on in a second about one of the talks they're going to have for one particular person. They've got a contact with the ISS, with astronaut Paolo Nespoli. I mean, how amazing is that's going to be? They're going to go have a huge number of stories to tell all the folks, and it's something I think they'll remember for life. I think it's something they're going to look back on, the rest of life. I think it would have had a really amazing time. So I wish them all the best of luck, and I will try to make contact myself. Of course, our fellow podcast colleague Leslie, I believe, is very, very close to that location. And I know Leslie's not very well, so get well soon, Leslie, if you're listening. And I'm sure you'll work them on a wet string from where you are.
Yeah.
There you go. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah. It's a shame. I meant to mention that, at the moment Martin's on holiday, and he's coming back Saturday, and we're going Sunday. And unfortunately, Leslie has done his knee again, and he can't walk. So unless somebody's going to wheel him around in a wheelchair to the event, Leslie won't be with us on Sunday. But he only lives around the corner from it, so it would have been nice and local for him. But we wish all the youngsters a lot of success. If you hear GB17 YOTA on air, please work them. They really do need as many contacts as possible. They're all very enthusiastic young people, so let's keep them that way. So I think that's a good one. Moving on, Chris, you put this one in. Lauren Richardson, age 12, completes the Wainwright's challenge, but she's also done some soda, hasn't she, Chris?
Yeah, so Lauren, who I think we featured before on the podcast, I think she's 12 years old, and with her dad, it's gone rounds. The dad's called Kevin G0PEK, and Lauren, like you say, is M6HLR, has managed to climb or walk up 214 fells, known as Wainwrights. And that's a lot of mountains and hills to climb. And every one, she's gone up there and she's actually put it on the air and put the summit on the air. So amazing thing to do, especially at that young age. And so she's done two things. She's not only has she managed to do this challenge of 214 of these summits, but actually put them on the air, which I think is a fantastic achievement. And not only that, she managed to get herself on BBC News. So I think up in the Cumbria area, she managed to get herself on the news there. So there's actually some pictures on the internet of her with the camera crew there up on, I think, probably the final summit she was at. and putting it on the air. So a wonderful ambassador for our hobby, really promoting what we do, and it's always good to see a youngster involved as well. So and she will be there doing a talk at YOTA. So she's one of the people there at YOTA. She'll be telling them all about her exploits there and how to build a portable antenna. So, really well done to Laura.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for the listeners, the link to the BBC show clip is in the show notes.
Yeah. Well, Ed, you're a Summits on the Air person. You know how difficult this is. This is a major achievement, isn't it?
Yeah, the Wainwrights, they might even have been around before Summits on the Air started. They are variable size, so I believe, and I could be wrong on this, but I believe some Wainwrights are actually also SOTA Summits, but a lot of them are a little bit lower. But 214 of those, to get up 214 Summits, no matter how high they are, and to get operational from the top of them, even with her father, I think Lauren has done a great job there, and all power to her, and it's nice that she's giving back by presenting at YOTA. That's absolutely fantastic.
That's great news. So, Dan, you somebody that goes out and operates portable, and would you ever consider doing SOTA and things like that?
Well, here in Michigan, we don't have many SOTA summits. And we have very few national parks, at least within an easy drive from my home. So my opportunities are limited. But we do this. A friend of mine actually is really big on this, and we're going to talk later about young people in ham radio. I think young people really enjoy being outside and operating at the same time. So I think this is a great thing to get young people involved in.
Yeah, I agree with you. And as I say, based on something that Chris and I were playing with late Sunday afternoon. You don't need a lot of equipment to take with you to go up the top of these hilltops.
You don't. In fact, Martin, sorry, I just want to jump in there. Yeah. There is, I just found on the internet, something called Wainwright's on the Air. So it looks like it's called WOTA, Wainwright's on the Air. It's similar to SOTA. So there actually is an award, or there is a program. They call it an adventure radio program for licensed amateurs in the Lake District to go away and do that in that part of the world. So it is actually recognised. Sort of scheme, so to speak.
Yeah, so that's good news. So, that's a good one, Laura. Moving on, this could be a political minefield. It could be a bit of fun, and I found it very interesting. It says examination requirements for amateur radio CEPT Class 1 license, and it shows the number of examination papers you have to sit in each country, the number of questions you have to answer, and as was pointed out in the pre-show discussion, we don't know how difficult the questions are. Some countries have a lot less questions than others, but they could be very difficult questions. We don't know. Dan, what do you think?
Well, I think it is interesting to compare the two. I didn't know that Ireland, France, and Norway only had a single test. I thought maybe they would have at least two tests, and the number of questions is very low. Norway is only 28 questions. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah. But what we don't know is it might not be multi-choice. It might be 28 questions, but you might have to write half a side of A4 for each answer. We don't know.
That's true. And they note here in the text that they had a 12-week study course, 24 hours total instruction, and so it's probably pretty rigorous.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the US and the UK are fairly similar. I mean, we're both 3 papers. We're 120 plus questions. You're 120, we're 133. We're quite very, very similar. I've looked at the Irish paper, a couple of practice papers, and they're equal with a full license examination would have been in the UK a few years back. So, I think the thing is that they cover the right things.
I was going to say, Martin, so my view on that is, well, actually the number of questions doesn't really matter. What matters is what is the material you need to learn to be able to answer the questions that you might get asked.
Yeah.
You may only get 28 questions, but if you don't know the answers, you're still going to fail. So it really needs to cover the syllabus. It needs to cover the breadth of knowledge that you need to know. Now, you might be lucky and get 28 questions that you know the answer to, or you might get 28 that the bit you didn't read the book on. So the fact that the exam is longer doesn't necessarily mean to say it's any easier. It may take less time to take, I suppose. And like you said earlier, we don't know if those 28 questions were much more complicated and difficult than the 133 we have to do across the 3 exams we do in the UK.
Yeah, and the reason for multiple papers in the UK and the US is because you've got 3 license classes, whereas the other countries given here, Ireland, France and Norway, only have 1 license class. So you'd only have 1 paper.
And actually, you could argue having 3 exams like we have in the UK and the US makes it slightly easier, because once you've done the first exam, you can almost kind of not forget about, but not concentrate on those areas. And then you do the next batch of knowledge you need to learn, and really revise on that set of knowledge, pass that exam, and then you can not forget about, but not focus on, and then move on to the more things that are covered in the extra or the advanced paper. So you're actually learning it in batches, which actually might make it a little bit easier to keep in your head when you take the exam.
Yeah.
What it does is it allows people to get in at whatever level they want to be at, whereas in the countries where there's only 1 exam and it's the full license. This is the reason that like foundation intermediate licenses were brought in. There's only 1 license class. You've got to get to that standard of knowledge. You go and take the exam, you fail it, you walk away from the hobby. Whereas with the 3 levels, hopefully you can get in at the first level, and then when you're ready, move up if you want to, or stay where you are, and then move up again if you want to, or stay where you are. So, I think the 3 level thing is something I personally would like to see adopted across all the countries. But, that's not something I can change. It's something I can promote. In these cases, as we said, we don't know what the questions are, how difficult, etc., etc. But the background to this particular article was relation back to the CEPT Class 1 license. And this is actually, must clarify this, this is nothing to do with your holiday 3 months, up to 3 months operating in another country. This is where somebody actually moves from one country to another. If they've passed a full license or a Class 1 license in one country that's a CEPT country, they can get what's called a HAREC certificate from the CEPT. When they present that to the new country they're moving into to live, they can then get the full license there. So that's what this is all about.
Yeah. As I say, I understand that, but it's interesting, and in fairness, each and every country, and here the one that everybody will point the finger at, because they probably haven't done the research, is Norway has 1 paper and it's 28 questions. Now that's 28 questions, but you don't know what the syllabus could be. The syllabus could be massive, and they might only pick 28 questions out of that. And equally, as far as the CEPT are concerned, they have agreed and done everything that is required. So I don't see any problems with that, in fairness. And holding a license for the UK and the US, I've looked at doing the Irish license, because I was hoping Colin was going to do it at one point in time, and I'd have done the study with him. Probably taken the exam, but I wouldn't have applied for the license. But each and every one of these countries do test you. It's not a given. It's not a giveaway. So I think
the one thing that, Martin, that is striking, looking at the article there, is around practical assessments. So it looks like the UK, of the 5 countries we're looking at here, UK, Ireland, France, Norway, and this US, the US isn't CEPT, but it's on there for comparison, is that the UK does practical assessments, which don't believe other countries do. So that makes you think, well, actually, if they're all CEPT Class 1 licenses, certainly the European ones there, that practical assessment then maybe is not actually that, maybe that's not actually, it's just something we'd like to do. And actually, I think it's a good idea, because we'll actually get to go on the air and actually, rather than just, so there's your license and off you go, you actually get a bit of practice on doing some physical, practical things, which I think is actually useful training. But it looks like it's maybe not something that's actually essential to actually get a CEPT license.
No.
Correct. The CEPT state that the questions are on technical, operational and regulatory matters. And each of these countries conforms to get the HAREC certificate. The practical exam, which might be in some countries soldering a board together even, is not required. It's that particular country. Every country can be different, but yeah, I mean, you if you want to learn the regulations in Norway and go and sit that paper with 28 questions, remember you get one wrong there. It's the same as getting 2 wrong in Ireland, for example, because it's 60 questions there. So it's actually, you've got to be really on the ball when there's less questions. In theory, if you were no good at practical building things and the country you were in was a CEPT country that needed you to build things, then you could, in theory, go and live over in the other country for, let's say, 2 or 3 years, take the license there, then move back to the UK. But, would you really want to?
No. And in fairness, Ed,
I think.
Sorry, Ed.
I think the biggest hurdle for me would be learning Norwegian.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fair comment.
And on the practical thing, I think the practicals that the people have to do in the UK to get the licence is well worth the effort. However, and let's be honest about it, Ed and I never sat the practicals. We went to there was a one licence system when we passed ours.
Yep.
And, that was it. So it was like everywhere else. So practicals are nice, but they're self-imposed by the UK. And
I've always said, Martin, we never learnt which end of the soldering iron to hold.
Yeah, don't pick up by the hot end.
Well, actually, we learnt afterwards. The hard way.
Yeah. Too true. Anyway, as I say, interesting concept there of if you're going to get your HAREC licence, and just a quick overview of how many test papers and how many questions you might have to sit in 5 countries. So there you go. Moving on. Ofcom in the UK, is the regulator, have permitted 5.8 gigahertz now for Wi-Fi. So they've taken part of the amateur band and allowed Wi-Fi access to it. Now, we're secondary users, as Ed told me earlier, and we're not supposed to cause any interference. But then so are the Wi-Fi people. So, Ed, do you want to talk about this first?
Yeah. This is the 6 centimetre band, which isn't an amateur. Well, we have a right to operate there, but we are secondary users. I'm not sure who the primary user is. My guess would be possibly military. Other users in parts of the frequencies that the amateurs have are the license-free operation of things like Wi-Fi hotspots or microwave point-to-point links. And what's happening here is the frequencies that can be used now for the license-free Wi-Fi hotspots, Ofcom is increasing those to take up more of the band. Now, that can cause a problem to amateurs who are using this band to control satellites or to send data and receive data from satellites on 6 centimetres, because the general noise flow will rise, because, of course, with Wi-Fi, it transmits in every possible direction. That's the whole idea. So it's not good, but we're secondary users, so we can't do anything about it.
Dan, have you got any thoughts? I know it's we're the different opposite side of the pond from you, but any thoughts on this one?
Well, I looked up the frequencies that we're allowed to use here in the U.S. and where the Wi-Fi is, and I don't think we've had any major problems here with any kind of cross interference. So, I don't know that there'd be any big deal about this.
Yeah, because
do you have any satellites controlled on 6 centimeters though? You probably do.
I tell you the truth, I'm not sure.
You probably do, and it's more a matter of point-to-point amateur operation on 6 centimeters. It probably isn't going to impact them, but it's when it's low signal strength stuff, the general noise level, the background noise has come up, that could make it a situation where somebody who was the controller for an amateur radio satellite can no longer do that job without moving house.
Well, that's an interesting one. Chris, I mean, what's your thoughts? I would have thought that people who make Wi-Fi access points and wireless points for routers would make them worldwide, and pretty much
you thought to get the economies of scale you would need to make lots of them, although I suppose that a whole country like the UK, they're probably still going to make quite a lot of them. But I was thinking about this earlier. So in my house, I think I counted something like 10 devices that use Wi-Fi. mobile phones, tablets, computers. I've got a camera that uses Wi-Fi. In fact, I've got two actually. It's just the number's going to go up and up and up, and you can sort of see why they would, and this is all based, not in the consumer's mind, because it's just magic as far as I'm concerned. But this is all based on radio technology, and it's quite high bandwidth. You get 100. My computer I'm using here to record send my voice to the podcast is running at, as we did earlier. I'm getting 100 megabits per second bandwidth from this, and that's probably creating an awful lot of RF in my house. And of course, we're all sharing this quite small, relatively quite small amount of bandwidth. If you look at you take your smartphone around with you into any kind of city or kind of reasonably busy place and do a search the number of Wi-Fi hotspots, there could be tens or hundreds of hotspots all sharing that same amount of spectrum. So I can definitely see a need to increase that spectrum as these things go up. Is this going to cause? Yes, it may well cause as a problem that use that particular part of the spectrum. It's not something I personally use, and it's a shame for people that it may affect. So I think it's one of those great good things. I think we're probably all going to be using Wi-Fi on these frequencies in the future. So yeah, I think unfortunately it's one of those things we have to bear. We're a secondary user anyway, and I think Ofcom was saying, well, look, the greater good is actually people using Wi-Fi, I'm afraid. So I don't think it's an argument we're going to win. Much as we'd like to.
Yeah. Well, I think, as you well know, there's technically 11 channels on 2 gig Wi-Fi in the UK, and each one of the transmitters is 3 channels wide. So there's little more than about 3 clear channels at any one time. So there are a lot more channels up on 5 gigs, and I suppose people will go there eventually. So
well we already are using 5 gigs.
Yeah.
AC mode, which is the current Wi-Fi mode, fastest one you can get, is on 5.8 gigs, and even N uses 2.4 or 5 gigs. Yeah. So we're already up there using it. They're just adding another 160 megahertz of the frequency up there to be free to use, license free. And back to, I think, Chris, you said about the frequencies. There are different channel frequencies and numbers of channels in different parts of the world. For instance, if you get a router and you set it up in your company for Wi-Fi in the UK and you ship it to the US, there's a good chance it's on the wrong frequencies, and vice versa. They are different. Just the channels that are used are different, and even the 6 centimeter amateur band is actually 3 blocks of frequencies. It's not one band. So it's all very piecemeal when you get up around those frequencies, unfortunately.
Yeah. So I was looking actually now on my phone. I've got a little Wi-Fi analyzer app on my phone, and my phone currently can see 15 different Wi-Fi networks, and they're all shared. Okay, it's split across both 2.4 gigs and the 5 gigs bands for Wi-Fi. But even so, 15 is quite a lot, I would suggest. And they're all competing for that that bit of allocation.
Yeah, agree with you. So, an interesting one. We've lost a bit more spectrum, but probably kept the general public happy with increasing their Wi-Fi on 5 gigs. So, okay, we'll have to live with that one, I suppose. Traditional ham radio leaves youngsters uninterested is the title. And here it says that the ARRL president, Rick Roderick, K5UR, was surprised to discover when he was doing one of his talks to a group of youngsters that they were totally disinterested, and he kind of has gone back and had to sort of think about what do we talk to people about. Dan, do you want to go first on this one?
Sure. So my initial reaction when I read this was, where's this guy been the last 10 or 15 years? I hate to sound like really critical about this because, maybe he really hasn't been out talking to people, but I've known this for a long time myself. And whenever I go out and talk to people about ham radio, I try to give them a feel for the whole hobby, not just this HF stuff, because that's where a lot of the action is now. Yeah.
Well, as I say, I always hold my arms wide apart, and I say that's how wide our hobby is. And then pinch my fingers together to about an inch, and I say most people play in that bit, and some people play in another bit that's that wide within that band. So there's a lot to our hobby that people don't know about. And when you actually give them the glossary, they pick up on it. Ed, what do you think?
Yeah, well, there's the expression I've heard around, which is amateur radio is 50 hobbies in one. And the majority of those 50 hobbies don't need a license because you're not transmitting. So, construction, listening, fox hunting, and all kinds of other ones. But yeah, my reaction was similar to Dan's when I read this. I went, he didn't research his audience, did he? He didn't. If he was going to go and give that lecture to somebody, to a radio club, fair enough. But if it's the public, he needs to be far, far wider than that, as you say, Martin, and say, look, the hobby's this wide. There's something in here for most technical geeks and also for those that aren't geeks. So we sell our hobby short, quite honestly, and I'm hoping that will change. I know the RSGB is looking into how they can better market the hobby in the areas other than, normal HF communications kind of things. So I expect the ARRL will be doing the same kind of thing. We've got a great hobby and everybody plays in a little bit of it.
Yeah, they certainly do. Chris? Yeah, I'm sorry to bring you in last again, but what do you think?
Well, I can only sort of echo what the guys have said, really. I've not really got much else to add on that. I mean, like you say, it's kind of adjusting your delivery for the audience, and perhaps on this occasion it wasn't quite didn't quite hit the mark. And I've heard you say before, Martin, about it's a very wide hobby and we play in that part of it, and you sort of choose the part of it that interests you, don't you? And I think there are things that perhaps can excite children about. We go on NHS Belfast now and again, and we use Morse code with the children, and they love that. Secret code and things that are always very interesting for them. Things like satellites and international space stations, lots of things out there that can be used to, I'm sure kids would be captivated about. So I think there are elements of a hobby that can be interesting. Certainly HF, maybe 20 or 30 years ago when, international communications wasn't as easy as picking up a Skype phone or dialing someone on your mobile. Then maybe talking to somebody in another part of the world was quite magical, but I think now it's not, because we've got the internet. So, but I'm sure there are other elements of the hobby that would interest kids. So, unfortunately, as on that occasion, didn't quite hit the mark.
Yeah.
I'll just throw one more thought in here.
Go on.
This guy's the president of the ARRL, right? Is how reflective of the ARRL's positions are his thoughts. I mean, and I think they are. I think the ARRL maybe has got stuck in that old time mindset. And while there's lots of things happening to get them out of that mindset, and maybe this will be a even bigger push in that direction, the ARRL's got to get off this, contesting and logbook of the world and all that stuff, because that's just not where it's at. That's not where it's going.
Yeah, it's only one part of our hobby, is it? So.
And maybe I'm a little bit more sensitive to that because I teach people, all right? I teach people coming into the hobby, and they come in with all different kinds of motivations, drone operators and a lot of emergency communications people. And, so I see this. I see that how the thing is sort of changing. And let's just hope the ARRL can keep up with it. One other quick point is that in the annual report, they report on membership, and unfortunately, membership has dropped again. And part of the reason, of course, is we've had a dues increase. But it's one of my things that I'm trying to get the ARRL to set a membership goal of 25% of the licensed radio amateurs in the U.S. be ARRL members. And if you look over the last 5 to 10 years, it's just continuing to decrease. Part of that is the number of amateurs is increasing. That's great. But the ARRL isn't keeping track with the number of licensed radio amateurs. And I just think that's wrong. I think they need to put more of an effort on attracting licensees to be members. And part of it is this, looking to see where they are, what they're interested in, and then serving them.
Yeah.
End of rant.
No. I agree, because I've just had my request to renew my ARRL membership, and I looked at it and thought, I'm sure that's gone up quite significantly over, because I normally do it every 3 years, and it used to be the same, pretty much the same price as the RSGB, give it or take a few pounds. In fact, ARRL was usually cheaper than the RSGB, believe it or not. It wasn't this time around, and as you say, I understand all the expenses they have, but also, if you're going to get people in, you've got to give people what they want, and they have a good website, in my opinion. I enjoy the magazine, but I enjoy it. Does that mean that the youngsters enjoy all the bits in it? I don't know. And I would guess that the majority of the magazine's paid for by all the adverts in it. If it isn't, then somebody needs to be put up against the wall and shot. Oh, hang on, I've just done a Jeremy Clarkson. I'm going to probably get done for that. But no, in the nicest possible way. That magazine should be paid for by the adverts. I mean, it's half.
And, having been in the magazine business at one point, I will say that I think they've done actually a pretty good job with QST and keeping the number of advertisements up. Yeah. You look at any other magazines, they've all gotten thinner. The advertisements have gotten less and less. But QST seems to be keeping the size up, which is that's good. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I'm not knocking the size down. I just felt that the amount of adverts in there, that it should cover the price of producing that magazine, I would have thought. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm willing to admit that. Right, moving on. The NCDXC is starting an HF Elmering program. Dan, you put this in. Kind of interesting. What do you think on this one?
Yeah, so I think this is an interesting juxtaposition with our previous discussion here, because, we're talking about younger people or newcomers to the hobby not being so interested in HF. And here the North California DX Club is talking about setting up an HF Elmering program. And I think it'll be good. And I think that a lot of newcomers may not pick up on HF as much because they don't get exposed to it as much. So we'll have to just see how this works out. But it should be a low cost way to help some guys get on HF.
Yeah, that's good. Chris, what's your feelings on Elmering HF?
Well, I think any Elmering is a great idea. Obviously, we are members of clubs, and clubs are a great way of, and obviously these guys in Northern California are doing something great. So, but they've actually got a formal program, which is great. So actually, maybe it's got some more structure to it. But generally, people, and certainly myself, Martin, you and my Elmer, and probably still are, in amateur radio. So, I joined a club, did the course, took the exams. But I've been helped along by a club. If you're on your own, it's very difficult. And actually having people there that have done it before and have got all that experience and can pass that down. So I think it benefits both the person receiving it, but also I think it's quite a lot you get from it yourself if you're a person doing the Elmering, passing and making sure the hobby continues. And I think it's quite a bit of satisfaction there. So I think the fact they've actually got a bit more structure around it, I think is good. So I guess it means that people, it's something that's planned and perhaps as an outcome and some goals that are set. But I think it's a great idea, and I think he also talks about using WebEx, so there's no excuse at all if you are someone that lives a number of a bit of a way away from these guys. Well, you can do it anywhere from your computer, so I think there's no excuse. So I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. And on the Elmer in front, you saw your Elmer. Everybody's an Elmer. Everybody knows something that can bring to the pot. So guys, don't sit back and do nothing. Everybody's an Elmer. I learn as much from Chris as he learns from me, I'm sure, and the guys, and we all pass knowledge around. So everybody's an Elmer. What do you think, Ed?
Yeah, coming back to one point Chris just touched on there. One paragraph in here says another restriction is that currently all of the program's Elmers are in the San Francisco Bay Area. They realise that their online students can be nearly anywhere, however. So the WebEx part of it and the online part of this Elmering is actually very good because, yes, it's the Northern California DX Club that are doing it, but they're happy to Elmer anyone across the states and I don't know, possibly even across the world. If you've got an internet connection, which is, going with the times, so you don't actually have to go into a class there. It's all done online, and that's something that's going to be quite important. If I'm not wrong, Northern California DX Club is one of the clubs that does a lot of sponsorship of DXpeditions as well. So they actually do put a lot back into the hobby in that one facet of our large hobby.
Yeah. So all in all, it's an interesting one, but as Ed and I mentioned earlier, and the guys, this is only one part of our hobby. Elmering in one part of our hobby. I'm glad somebody's doing something, but as I said just now, everybody's an Elmer. Everybody has a knowledge in some area that you can impart to somebody else. So please don't sit back. If you know about something and somebody asks you, help. And it doesn't matter what class of license you've got. If you know about it and the other person doesn't, don't rub their nose in it, but help them get a better understanding. Moving on, Fox 1 satellite operating guide. There's an update for it for 2017, and it's a 2-page PDF file. Once you get to the website, and we'll put links on. I found this very interesting because it pretty much gave me a 2-page if I wanted to operate this satellite. Chris, you've been last a few times. What do you think?
Well, I've had a look at this. It looks very good. It's quite American where it's written, but I think it's a great sort of introduction. It's only 2 pages on it of A4 letter-sized paper. You can print it out, laminate it, and it gives you some great ideas about how to operate. It gives you some good tips around things like Doppler shifts, and some of the terminology that's used, things like azimuth and elevation, and give you some idea about how to conduct a QSO, your first QSO. So I think for someone starting out satellites, like maybe myself, if we ever get round to doing it, Martin, and the club, I think this will actually be a really good short, but really really useful sort of guide. Obviously, it is geared towards the Fox 1 satellite. So it's got the various details around that, things like the CSS term that's used, the fruits, etc., and that sort of thing. But I think this is probably actually useful for anyone trying to get satellites. Yeah, I think it's a good one.
Yeah. Dan, any thoughts on this from yourself?
Well, like we always talk about it in this podcast, and what we should all do is like set a goal for ourselves to get on satellites by, like, I don't know, end of the year or but this time next year, or Friedrichshafen next year or something, because that would lend a little more credence to our reviews of these things.
Okay, I'll accept the challenge. Stupidly, I'm shooting myself in the foot. Chris, are you going to hold me to it?
Well, I am. And I'll do Martin as well. I agree actually with you on that, Dan. I think if you don't set yourself a goal, or it's like doing any exam, and I find, because I've done quite a few IT exams, unless you actually book the exam and have a date to work to, you never actually read the book by the time you've got to do the exam. You never do the work. So you need a goal. You got the goal. You got an event. You've got something that you got to work towards. That's a great motivator.
So
let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
So what time scale? Ed, what time scale?
Give me 10 minutes to go get the antenna from downstairs. I've got the transceiver next to me at the moment. I just need to find when the next one comes over. How about that?
All right. Okay.
It's a bit dark outside at the moment.
Yeah.
I've actually done this several years ago on an FM satellite. I think it was SO50.
Yeah.
Or 51, I can't remember now. And this write-up here is very similar to what was written for that, except it's been expanded to cover the differences between the complete series of the Fox 1 satellites. Fox 1A, which is now American Oscar 85, AO 85, is already in orbit. It went up at in October 2015. So that one's actually currently in use or available. But there's a whole series. There's Fox 1B coming. That's expected October this year to be launched, all being well. Fox 1 Cliff, late 2017. Fox 1D, where's that one? Fall 2017, so about the same time. So by the end of the year, and Fox 1E which is Bad FX Sat 2, also aimed for December 2017. So by the end of the year, there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these in orbit. And, or have I missed another one? No, 5 of them, that's right. And all operated in a similar way. But it, this 2-pager introduction just tells you what the slight differences are, gives you examples of what you could use for equipment. And, the whole Fox series is probably one of the easier satellite series to get up on compared to some of the linear transponder ones. Some of them are data. The Fox one apparently is BPSK. So anyway, so getting on satellites is... It always seems to be a big thing. Maybe I'm a bit blasé about it because I managed it on my second attempt. Then I lost interest afterwards, though. So, again, I moved on to another part of our hobby, doing other things.
Okay. Well, for those of us who want to do it, how about we set a date? And the thing about setting challenges is not to set something that's unachievable. The ICQ podcast has just gone past its 9th birthday. How about we do it before it reaches its 10th birthday? So we've got till July next year to build the gear and get out. And so we must have done it by July next year, unless you guys have any objections. Dan and Chris?
Yeah, you sold me.
Yeah, I think that's more than enough time for
That's more than enough time.
The next few weeks, frankly.
Yeah.
How about 9th of the 9th, 17? Since you talk about 9 years, that gives you about 5 weeks. Yeah. That's probably a bit too tight.
No, the only problem I've got at the moment is my house is pretty much a building site at the moment. I've got a builder in and one thing and another, so that's why I'm trying to put it.
Yeah, you were saying before your work hours are a bit all over the place as well. No, I think it's reasonable to set a target for the birthday, the 10th year birthday of ICQ podcast.
Yeah, but we do satellites before the 10th birthday. Yeah?
Cool.
And then try and do a satellite link up with Dan in the States.
There you go.
You can do that. That'd be impressive. On the day, that would be very impressive.
On the day would be very good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's us agreeing to do something. So we'll see whether we succeed or fail miserably in the next year. Last news story of the day. Long-time ham radio gentleman gets a lifetime recognition, and Oscar Norris W4OXH given recognition for being a ham radio operator since 1949. So a long time there, Oscar. Dan, your side of the pond, the gentleman's 99, so he's obviously doing something right, isn't he?
Oh yeah. I always point to these guys when somebody says something to me about, well, isn't it dangerous being in RF fields, and all that. I said, well, look, we got guys who are 99. They're still ham radio operators.
Yeah. And still got their marbles, which is a good thing. And I keep getting told that a hobby like ours, where you have to use your brain and exercise it, is good for you. So, hey ho.
I think you're right, Mark. Martin. So, yeah, sorry, go on, Dan.
I was just going to say, and just from reading the story, when we talked about Elmer, it sounds like he's been an Elmer to a lot of guys, and that's a real nice thing too. Nice that he gets recognized for it.
Yeah,
it is, and almost 7 decades. It's a long time to be licensed. I'm sure he's made many friends over the years. He talks about him being blind, and that maybe amateur radio's helped him through his life. Being able to communicate and be on a level playing field with other people on the air. I'm sure it's helped him through his life, and hopefully it will continue to do so.
Yeah. Well, I think he's done
it says quite something for the hobby that if he was blind back 70 years ago when he got this, that he could actually get an amateur radio license back there as a blind person, because I don't think it would have been that easy for them to arrange that, as in, I guess, a test in Braille, or I don't know how they would have done it back then.
I think they do it verbal like they do now. If somebody in the UK is blind or partially sighted, you can have a reader, and there are certain questions that are excluded from the pool for blind operators, because, for argument's sake, on a foundation license in the UK, you're given a frequency and asked what the wavelength is, and you're supposed to do it on this graph. So you go up and across, and where the diagonal line meets, and you come down again. There's no way somebody could do that if they're blind. Use the graph or the lookup tables. Some of the lookup tables they couldn't do. So those questions are removed for a blind operator. But that doesn't mean to say the blind operator. All the blind operators we've taught or partially sighted have all wanted to do the whole course and wanted to understand it, although they might not have been quizzed on some of the questions. They've always been interested. So, and I think it's a level playing field. I mean, amateur radio, he may be blind, but he's sitting in his shack operating his radio, either CW or voice. The other person can't see whether he's blind or not. He's
Correct.
A normal person.
Yep.
Yeah, it makes it a level playing field for him, which is great.
Yeah.
And this guy is a good example for everybody, and it's really nice that the local club has now honoured him, and that this has also got into the paper as well, which is also nice. So all the best, Oscar. I hope I managed to work you at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, he turns 100 in September. So Norris, I hope you get there and enjoy your birthday, and I've got many years on the radio to come.
Yeah. Well, I think all of us agree that Oscar's doing well. Okay, guys, that ends the news stories. I'm going to run around the table and ask the guys what they've been up to. Two of you I was with a couple of weeks ago, so that'll be a little bit longer. But Dan, would you like to go first?
Sure. So I'm in the process of writing another book called Ham Radio for Hackers. And one of the things I've started writing about is using Arduinos to do different things. And so I actually cobbled together one of the Arduino controlled DDS VFOs, and that was kind of fun.
Uh-huh.
Using one of those cheap 809850 boards.
Yeah. Sounded interesting. I know there are some
it was.
Arduino rigs out there. I think Tentec, I think they're doing an Arduino-based rig, so that's a good way to move. That's very interesting to see that done.
And there's a project here in the U.S. I heard a talk about it at Dayton. They're using Arduinos in a BitX40 to do all kinds of different add different functionality to it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things going on, and it's fun, fun to do a little programming and get that 809850 to work, and that's just fun.
Yeah. Well, the Arduino is a good little piece of kit. As I say, I've got a BitX40, and the control head is run with a Arduino. So
right.
Frequency generation via a DDS chip, and the display and the control is all done via an Arduino. So it's kind of an interesting device, and something that I started reading a lot about, and then run out of time. I got hijacked for other things and got another job and all those sort of things, and it went on the back burner. But I keep looking at the book thinking I really ought to start again on that one. But yeah, I know what you mean, Dan. It's an interesting piece of kit. Ed, what have you been up to?
Well, some of it I haven't had that much time for radio over the last month. What with the trip to Friedrichshafen and working with yourself, Carol and Chris there. And also I was over in the UK for a week visiting my brother and sister. So not a lot done, so I'm trying to catch up nowadays. Now, in a few days now I hope to work GB5RC, which will be probably finishing off on the day that this podcast is released. So that's the Martello Tower Group operating from the Ross Revenge again,
Right.
from Radio Caroline. So I'd love to work them. I also want to try and get a few 4 meter, 70 megahertz contacts in prior to the end of August, when the German amateurs lose that band again. We only had it for a temporary period, so try and get a few 4 meter contacts in if the bands are playing anything like. So that's on the radio operations side I want to get done in the next couple of weeks. And I've got some hardware projects as well. One is building a new 50 watt portable HF amplifier for use in my SOTA. That's actually based around a €17 kit from China, so be interesting to see how that works out. I'm waiting for an antenna phasing box, where you use a second antenna to null out RFI or EMI on your main antenna. If that works, there'll be a short report for the ICQ podcast in the future. And I'm also working with a new antenna manufacturer who is new to amateur radio, that is, on a HF mobile whip. I met them at Friedrichshafen, and they're developing a new version of the whip that goes on a car and covers some of the HF bands.
Well,
so hopefully
good.
Next time I'll have a lot more to talk about.
Yeah, sounds good. And it was interesting. I was going to be a bit naughty and publish the picture of you, Chris, and I Carol took on Saturday. I know Chris put it on the internet. I was going to put it on the ICQ podcast and a few other places and say ICQ podcast and Amateur Radio Newsline working together. But I thought it was a bit naughty. But I think Karen wouldn't have been too upset. But as I say, you were there in your blue shirt and we were there in our orange ones. But as I say, hopefully you got some good stuff for AR Newsline.
Yeah, that was in last week's.
Yeah. And as I say, yeah, it sounds like you've been real busy. Chris, what else have you been up to?
Well, as we know, I've been to Friedrichshafen. Feels like a long time ago now. It was only, was it 2 weeks ago now?
Oh, it does seem like
3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, since then I've changed my old Volvo for a slightly newer old Volvo car and had to take the radio out of the old one and put it into the new one. Haven't quite got that finished because I thought I had, but the hot glue gun, so I kind of made a metal plate up to attach the, I struggled a little bit to find somewhere on the centre console for the head unit for the radio to go. But I managed to make a metal plate up and attach it to the centre console. And I hot glued the head unit to it. And I thought that'll look great, it worked really well. And the next day it had fallen off. So almost in the hot glue had got hot and it melted or whatever, and it didn't stick very well. So I need to find another way of doing that. I'm sure I'll find something. So there was that. And Martin, we've also been out and playing with an ale, haven't we? Which I won't steal your thunder. I'll let you talk about that one.
Oh, yeah, we did play. Oh, on the hot glue gun thing, on your plate, drill a couple of holes in it and then put the hot glue, because then the hot glue will go through the holes as well and it'll fit on the back so it keys on. Basically what's happening is there's no key, so...
Yes, probably right. Not a bad idea. I might give that a try. I might try some film tape, a double-sided film or something. But I'm sure there'll be a way of doing it.
Yeah. But that's how I did it in the end in Carol's car, is I put the bracket on and then I drilled holes in the bracket and the glue goes through and sticks both sides.
Okay, I'll give that a try. Thank you.
So that's just a thought. Yeah, we've, apart from Friedrichshafen and Ed looking after Mrs. Butler, why Chris and I skip round the flea market. I heard you bought her an ice cream, Ed. You did us a favour. Hi.
I got myself one as well.
Oh, yeah. No probs. But that gave Chris and I time to go around the flea market. And she also went off and had a look at the Maker Fair. So, interesting enough, she was very pleased and said it was something that she'd do again. Radio front from my side, yes, Chris and I had a quick look at an antenna. I've got one in to evaluate from SOTA Beams. I'll give you a far better review of it when I've fully reviewed it. But if I say it was the easiest operation, I took out one of the band hopper antennas, met up with Chris, we put up a fishing pole. You could do it on your own. It was easy with two, but you could do it on your own. I had a fishing pole with a band hopper antenna, a radio and a battery.
I've been using that antenna for the last 6 years.
Yeah, lovely little device.
Simple, worked
very well. No ATU, bang. The only thing I didn't have this radio, I wanted to go on 60 metres, and the 60 metre, I've got the 60 metre version, and the radio I had didn't have 60 metres in, so I was a little bit disappointed. But it was end of a Sunday, late Sunday afternoon, early evening, running 10 watts from just south of London. We was into the Netherlands and Austria on 10 watts. The band wasn't that particularly good. We also had a half contact with a guy in Hungary. He got half of my call sign a couple of times. So I knew he was struggling, then he gave up. And we thought Oh, where was it, Chris? Argentina.
We heard Dubai.
Dubai.
We heard a station in Dubai, which was probably off. Oh, actually, you're right. And Argentina. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
So we heard Dubai and Argentina. Couldn't work them because everybody else was screaming and hollering at them, but we heard them. So,
but the stations that we did work were really. I know you did a little trick, Martin, of not giving him the power until you made the contact and got your signal report. But I think both contacts, when you said you're running 10 watts, were quite shocked and the signal you were putting out and how well they could hear you.
Yeah. So it worked very well. So I was pleased with that. We'll do a better report, and I want to try to do 60 metres as well. And
I think, to be fair, sorry, it's on that one. We were both quite. I rang you and said, "Look, Martin, I'm popping out to Epsom Downs. Fancy coming along? Just quick go on the radio for maybe an hour or so, and maybe not even that, And suddenly, very late, no notice at all. Basically, he said, "Yeah, I'll pop along." So we'd both taken with us not a lot of equipment. Literally, I think you brought that aerial, which came with a feed, a battery, and your 703, and that was it. So there was not the usual car full of masts and feeder and all kind of toolboxes. It was minimal, and we got on quite well, didn't we?
Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it.
Okay, you two, now get yourself up at the top of a summit and do the same.
We've thought about it.
You've got the equipment now.
Yeah, we thought about it. The other thing I've done, and I'm really annoyed because I can't find the bit of paper that I had in front of me before we started. I've repaired or renovated a 48-year-old multimeter. And you guys go, so it's a multimeter, what? This is a multimeter that was made in February 1969. It's a Philips valve voltmeter, and when I went to work for the Philips television company in the factory in 1970 when I first left school, these were so expensive that they only issued 1 per 2 fault finders, and two guys had to share one of these. I bought it at a rally a while ago, and I actually got around to repairing it. A couple of things that really excited me is when I looked at it, I've got serial number 0001. So that excited me. And secondly, I looked at the spec, and you think, valves, and you think, bits and pieces. The spec on it, it's on the 10 volts and up, it's 100 meg. 100 meg impedance.
Yeah.
100 meg impedance. I think the worst is 10 meg, but it's 100 meg on that up. It's frequency response. Normally a multimeter has a frequency response of like 50 or 100 hertz. This is between 20, it calls it cycles per second because it isn't in hertz, but 20 hertz to 1 gigahertz. And there was an SWR, it says it's SWR 1-to-1 up to 1 gig. There was an adapter thing that you could get for it. And it measures resistors, I think, 10 to the minus 9. So I think it's like almost a gig ohm. It'll measure, I thought anything over 10 megs was pretty much open circuit, but this, by all accounts, measures up to 10 gigs, so I don't understand how it does it. Sorry, 1 gig, my apologies. But it's a phenomenal piece of equipment. You switch, and I'm really pleased with it. It's history for me, and I'm sorry I'm waffling on about this, but it's real history for me when I first started work, and I actually own one, and I've been using it the last few days, and it's a real nice piece of kit. So that's what I've been up to. Okay, well, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for joining me tonight. I'd like to thank Mr. Chris Howard M0TCH.
Yeah, thanks, Martin and guys. It's been fun, as it always is.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, and we'll see you soon. I'd like to thank Mr. Dan Romanchik, KB6NU.
Thanks again for having me.
That's always great, Dan, and a pleasure. And Mr. Ed Durrant, DD5LP.
Yep, thanks for inviting us along, as always. Good time.
And guys, it looks like Colin's trying to get us all to commit to doing Friedrichshafen next year. So I think you'll be there, Ed, won't you? But
it's a bit of a long drive, It's Hour and a half.
Yeah. Well, not quite as long as mine then.
Well, I might drive again next year. Now I've got my new Volvo. We'll see. See.
Yeah.
It's not an hour and a half though. I'm not working from here anyway.
No. But it was doable. Carol and I did it, and we didn't find it a stress, so that was good.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So I'd like to thank you very much. I'll say 73. 73 all.
7-3.
7-3, guys.
Keep your amateur ham radio podcast advert free by donating less than a length of coax. Visit www.icqpodcast.com/donate now. For all the news, links and information, visit www.icqpodcast.com.
And now it's time to have a look at the news in brief with me, Colin M6BOY. And we start off with news here of a popular piece of software that's had FT8 mode added to it. The WSJT-X software, now at version 1.8 but still in beta mode, now has a FT8 mode described as being fast, with an entire QSO talking about a minute, which is 4 times faster than the JT65 mode when it's on weak signal. The software has been developed by Stephen, K9 Alpha November, and Joe, Kilo 1 Juliet Tango, and the name JT8 stands for the creators Frank and Taylor of the 8-frequency key shifting modulation. Using a 15-second transmit and receive sequences, it provides 50% or better decoding probability down to -20 dB. The software includes an auto-sequencing option, can also respond automatically to a CQ call decoded reply. They've also got a DX, HFDX in mode, and a multi-hop sporadic E propagation on 6 meters, where deep fading may make fast and reliable QSO completion desirable. So we've got a link to the piece of software on the ICQ podcast website. So this is a mode that's interesting you. Certainly, say check this piece of software out. Might be of good use for you. The International Space Station has been transmitting slow scan TV pictures to amateur ham radio stations around the world using 145.8 MHz on the FM band. Unfortunately, these pictures have now stopped being transmitted since late July, but a collection of images are now available online for viewing. So we've popped a link to that website on our webpage, and certainly if that's something of interest yourself, certainly check those images out. Ofcom have released a document detailing amateur ham radio license guidance for licensees available via, say, the RSGB website. The areas of change from the previous edition include licensing in reference to club licenses, the use of the hash symbol in the call sign printed on section 1 of the license, changing and transferring of call signs, main station address, license validation, and HAREC information. There's also information as well regarding internal waters such as the Thames Estuary, the Solent and the British Channel, where the optional /M suffix can now be used. So there's always a link on the ICQ podcast website for more information. And we finish up with an email sent to us by Christian Jacobs, who asks us to give a shout out for a piece of software that he's released. It's PyQSO. It's a piece of general purpose contact logging software that runs on Linux, let's say, which he would like you guys to know about. So he's given us a YouTube video link that shows a demonstration of the video, and of course you can check that out on icqpodcast.com. Well, now we head over to our featured episode, which is the final roundup of the interviews that we've done at the Friedrichshafen Ham Radio 2017 show. As always, guys, hope you enjoy.
And now, what you've all been waiting for, this episode's feature from the ICQ podcast. Well, hi guys, I'm at Friedrichshafen. I'm actually on the ARRL stand, and I've let Bob in the bits and off the hook today, and one of his colleagues has decided to tell us what you're up to at the show. So who are you, sir?
I'm Jay Bellows. I'm K0 Quebec Bravo, and I am the International Affairs Vice President for the ARRL.
So it's a real pleasure to meet you, sir.
My pleasure.
So what are you doing at the show this weekend? What's new?
It's pretty much the same as usual. We're here to provide whatever assistance we can for people who are interested in ARRL. We have a few things to sell, memberships, questions to get asked about, logbook of the world.
That's good.
And a lot of DXers coming with cards to be checked. So it's pretty much try to do as much of a full service operation as we can.
That's good.
4,000 miles from home.
Well, I'd say it's good. Well, I am actually an ARRL member.
Oh, I'm sure.
No, seriously.
We have a lot
Yeah,
of
yeah.
members.
Yeah,
It's amazing to me how many members we have.
Yeah.
And as the International Affairs VP, I'm aware we actually have almost 10,000 members outside of the U.S.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
It's amazing.
Well, I know for a fact I'm a member. On the staff of the ICQ podcast, there are 2 English members that are members, and we have 2 American presenters as well,
Excellent.
which are both members. So we're quite involved with the ARRL and enjoy. I mean, I must admit, I enjoy your publications and the things that come out. So
Well, we appreciate that.
Far away from home.
We really make an effort to try and provide information and services both to U.S. amateurs, but we realize that a lot of our materials go beyond our borders, and we're pretty careful to try and make sure that we do a good job of that as well.
Okay. So I'm showing my ignorance a little bit. When I was here 2 years ago, I spoke to Kay, and we were talking about the antenna laws.
The
parity.
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 The Antenna Parity Act, yes. Well, as it happens, we have 2 houses in our Congress,
Right.
the House of Representatives and the Senate. It's gone through the House of Representatives and been passed there, and the bill was actually the term is dropped. All that means is it was actually introduced 2 days ago.
Oh, that's good.
So we're hoping that it will go through the Senate, although it's been a fairly contentious year about everything in our politics. But we have high hopes that it'll get passed.
Oh, that'll be good news. That'll be good news for you guys.
It will. It'll provide some relief for a lot of individuals who live in apartments and in condominiums and in areas where there are restrictions on antennas. This will at least provide some level of capability for them to put up an effective antenna and operate.
That's good. That's good. And say that's part of. I know that operating in emergency situations is a main part of your license in the States. And if you can't do it, effectively, if you can't put an antenna up, you can't comply with your license, can you? So it's almost a catch-22.
You can't transmit if you don't have an antenna.
That's true. Well, listen, thank you very much for giving us your time. I know you're a very busy man, so thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mark. It's been my pleasure.
I'm with Jeff today, Jeff G4IUA. Now, I know Jeff quite well because he's a member of the Sutton and Cheam Amateur Radio Society, my own club. You come here every year, don't you, Jeff?
I've been here probably about 14 or 15 times, something like that. Just keep coming back. It's a very good show. It's easy to get to. The venue is excellent. The lectures are good. Most of the main trade manufacturers I want to have an interest in, they're all here.
So that's good. So I happen to know, and I'm going to put you on the spot and embarrass you, but you did your amateur radio exam for the American licenses today. All 3?
Yeah, I did all 3. A little bit nervous about it, but I did spent quite a lot of time mostly using Ham Test Online, which is a subscription course, but it's not too expensive. And I think I got 1 wrong in the extra, so out of 50, I think it's acceptable.
Oh, I think that's more than acceptable. I'm sure our American colleagues would agree with us on that. But no, it's good to hear that you've done it, and good to hear you're enjoying the show. And at least it's you can go back this time with something that, all right, money can't buy. All right, you had to pay to do the test, but it's worth a lot more than some of the odds and ends you'd take back normally, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just a personal challenge, really. I mean, I've gained nothing from it. I'm probably never going to use the US call, but it's just a challenge. It's something I wanted to do, really. And I've done it, so another one ticked off.
Yeah, well, maybe the club or us lot will all go to Dayton fairly soon. We keep threatening it, so...
that would be great. Yeah, we should hire an aircraft or something.
Yeah, and then you and I could both use our US call signs.
Yes, that's right. You're an extra too, aren't you?
Yeah. And Chris, who's standing opposite us, he does actually use his American call sign.
Not very often.
Yeah, not very often, but
well,
there you go.
There we go.
So plans for the rest of the weekend, Jeff?
Tomorrow is the last day of the show. I'm heading back to Munich in the hire car, so I'll probably do some walking in the mountains in Austria or southern Bavaria. which are both very near and on the way back to Munich. So I can combine two interests, amateur radio and running around mountains, both of which I enjoy doing.
That's good. Well, listen, thanks for your time and congratulations on passing the exam.
Thank you very much, Martin.
Oh, hi guys, I'm at Friedrichshafen still. I'm actually on the DARC stand where they're actually got lots of soldering irons, kits being built, and I'm with a gentleman in front of me. Was it Carlston, DC8CH? Good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon. Hello.
Hello. So I wonder if you can tell me what the children are doing here today.
Yeah, some soldering kits for the ham rally.
Right.
There are children who are getting experience in amateur radio.
Yes.
And here is one station which is mandatory for the rally.
Right.
Every child who wants to participate in the rally has to solder here a little kit like a Morse beeper or a Würfel, a counter, something like a counter.
Right. So it looks very good. You've got enough for about 10 people here. Enough stations for 10 people to work.
We have eight stations, but we can mandatory put some more stations.
Yeah.
But now we have only 5 people to watch for the children, and so it's better.
Right.
Only a few soloing stations.
Yeah. It's a very rewarding time, spending time teaching children.
Yes, it's very fun. I've learned it from my dad.
Yeah.
As I was 6 years old.
Yeah.
With a lot of burnings on my fingers.
Yeah.
And now I want to give something back.
Yeah, I enjoy doing the same.
Yeah.
It is fun, and lots of children like to do these sort of things, but they don't often get the chance to be shown how to do them. So this is very worthwhile.
Yeah, it's and here are some parents have now the time to go to other exhibitions here and talk to other ham radio operators while we are looking after their children. And I think it's a benefit for the children and for the parents.
I agree. It's a bit like an electronics crash.
Yeah.
So it's very, very good. Well, I'm looking here. There's a young man sitting next to me who's building what looks like a Morse code Kia.
Yes.
With an IC, about 3 or 4 capacitors, and a little buzzer on it, so that looks very good. And the man on the other side doing a similar sort of thing, but screwing his to a board. So all in all, what do you charge the children for doing this? What's the charge?
It's free.
It's free?
It's free. It's a ham rally, it's free of charge, and this is donations from some groups who develop this. This is the Artist e.V.
Yeah.
This is ham radio in education.
Right.
In schools there are some teachers who are specialized for ham radio.
That's good.
And these kids are developed for these working groups, ham radio working groups or telecommunication working groups in schools.
That's very good, very good. Well, thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
The ICQ Amateur Ham Radio Podcast, serving the amateur ham radio community fortnightly since 2008.
I'm here with Michael from WRTC 2018, and he's just commenting the amount of work this time for setting everything up. There's the normal stand, of course. There's actually a cinema that's been built in a small tent here, and I believe outside you've set up a complete station, is that right?
Yes, we have set up a complete station outside near the restaurant, and you can see our WRTC beam with rotator, tent, and all the cables, also the 80-meter dipole is there, which can be fixed for sideband and for CW. And here inside the Roten Haus Halle A1, we have a booth with a lot of attractions with many informations and posters. We have a poster exhibition and also the cinema. And here you can see some films about WRTC, beginning with the Passport to Friendship from 1990.
Yeah, you're obviously very experienced at this, but there's also something else at the Friedrichshafen this year. You're actually having a tombola with lots of quite big prizes, and this is part of the drive to get more sponsorship to cover the costs for WRTC 2018. So any of the listeners listening to this who want to contribute, please go to wrtc2018.de, where I'm sure you'll find all the information. But just a brief thing on the tombola, Michael. What can people here at Friedrichshafen hope to win?
We have very good prizes this year because our sponsors. We have 2 Elecraft power amplifiers, KPA 500. You can win it in the evening draw on Friday and Saturday. We have a Flex radius, Flex 6500 with a Maestro, and we have several radios from our main prime sponsor by Yaesu, and so you have a lot of big prizes to win, and also many small prizes like headsets and cups and pedals and so on. And the price for one ticket is €1, and if you buy a block with 50 tickets, it's only €45. And I think you have a big chance. We have more prizes than tickets. So not more prizes. the amount of prizes is bigger than the amount of tickets.
Yeah, the relationship, the chance to win is quite high. Well, I only wish you, we might pop by either tomorrow or the day after, but wish you all well, and also obviously the rest of the crew. And let's hope everything next year goes extremely well. I know the tests went well this year, didn't they?
The test was very good, without big problems. Only the orange shirt, this was the biggest problem. And we hope to organize everything to learn a lot and have a nice event next year. Thank you for your help.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. These guys are really well organised. Okay, that's it for this short catch somebody in the corridor interview. So till the next one.
Well, we're here on the Austrian Amateur Radio Society stand with Michael OE3MZC. And pleasure to meet you, Michael. Good afternoon.
Hi, Martin. Good to have you here.
And you've been telling us about the innovation that you've been doing for the last 3 or 4 years. But tell us how this came about. Your son, you were telling me about your son and his smartphone.
Yeah, that's true. I have to mention that my son actually passed the examination, the amateur radio examination, at the age of 9 years.
That's good.
So that's very early. And he kept asking me the question, why is the radio, his handheld radio, not looking the same as his smartphone?
Yeah.
So that got us thinking about why not combining all the functionality and the technology that we are used in our smartphone with the common amateur radio transmitter handheld transceivers.
Yeah.
So that's how it started. The first was actually doing some Photoshop, and later on we got a very positive response. So we actually started to make an initiative, to create the initiative New Radio, or Next Generation Radio, to talk to the main manufacturers like ICOM, YOTA, Kenwood, to mention some of them, and letting them know about our thoughts and our wish list, so to say. Yeah. And that was the start of this project.
Well, that was interesting because I was actually here in 2015 when you did the announcement. You had ICOM, YOTA, Kenwood with you. And I assume not a lot happened because I haven't seen anything from them, but I have actually seen hardware that you seem to have sourced. Is it true to say that the big manufacturers haven't quite embraced this yet?
Yeah, you have to ask the big manufacturers actually to get a good answer on that. But yes, that's also our impression, and we want to take the idea further, and that's what we have done by means of some manufacturers in Far East. So we got some hardware there to show last year, and today we even have a second generation of this radio, which actually combines an Android version 6 or so smartphone with all the features that you are used to have, like NFC, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and things like that, incorporated together with a GPS, and of course together with a UHF radio with 4 watts and DMR and FM and all these things that you are used to have with your handheld.
Well, I think that's the sort of thing that a lot of new and youngsters come into the hobby. They're going to be very, very interested in because they're used to using smartphones. They expect devices to do all these sort of things. And unlike people of my age, which I'm not going to tell you quite how old I am, but we kind of accept that radio's done one way, but the youngsters, when they come into the hobby, they kind of just pick things up and go with them. And just going off as a slight tangent, I remember seeing a couple of our youngsters at the club with a smartphone decoding SSTV. You know, I would have never thought of doing that, just holding it next to the speaker. So the youngsters are our future. So therefore, you know, having a device like this is a great idea. Where do you see it going further? I mean, you've now, as a society, you're promoting it. You're not a business.
Yeah. As a society, we actually want to act as a kind of platform for innovation. And that next generation radio initiative is certainly one of an example for this. Last year, we hosted for our 90-year anniversary of the Austrian Amateur Radio Society. We hosted 120 youngsters from about 27 different countries in Austria for the Youngsters on the Air summer camp.
Yeah.
And also there we actually had a workshop to promote and to check this next generation radio type, bringing together smartphone functionality with a handheld amateur radio transceiver. And the response we got from there was also amazing. So as you're saying, the youngsters, they like it very much. They are used to it. They used to have a mapping and see the APRS position on a map. And not just the position in text. And also, for example, what we show here on the booth right now with the new devices, how this comes together. You have an app, a little piece of software running on your handheld that actually incorporates a database of all the repeaters worldwide with all the different settings, not just the frequencies and the PL tones, but consider how difficult it is to configure your radio for doing DMR, these digital voice things. I mean, it's sometimes very difficult to do these code blocks. With a combination of a smartphone with the app, let's call it R-Finder, just to have one example, you do not need a programming cable anymore. You don't need to have your code block complicated in a PC first and then transmitted into your radio. You can do that right with the tip of your finger, depending on your position out of the map, and that's what we think is technology for the future. It's not of the future, it's for the future, because it's readily available right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, equally, if somebody is a software engineer or interested in programming or interested in computers and amateur radio, this is kind of a project where you could get involved with. You could make a difference by producing apps and those sort of things.
Of course, we encourage everybody to the community to actually start creating apps for this kind of device, because it will greatly enhance the value and the functionality of the device. So the time is over where you're taking out your radio out of the box, and you got all the functionality available. It's like your smartphone right now. You take it out of the box, but then it's when you start to configure it, to personalize it, and to install all the different apps that you require for your lifestyle and for your habits, and that's the same for our hobby. So probably not everyone would install the same app on this next generation radio, but you certainly can. And we expect that the community will contribute nice pieces of software to this hardware platform, because it's quite open. You will have an API, a software developer kit and things like that. So everything that is required to program or to create programs and apps for this platform.
Yeah. So going forward, are any of the other amateur radio societies throughout Europe and even outside of Europe helping you with this development?
Yeah, I mean, the idea is very well received among the entire community, and we also see that when, for example, in a couple of minutes we will transfer the flag of youngsters on the air from the Austrian booth to the RSGB. RSGB is going to host the youngsters this year in the summer camp, and I'm sure they also will have a lot of fun and a lot of different projects and workshops concentrating on new technology, and that's what we really see within Region 1 to be a very positive effect, and that's great to see that. There's a lot of fun.
Yeah, so all in all, if I can sum it up in one way, I think a very interesting project. Innovative. Chris, go on, say it.
It's a very innovative project.
That's what I was trying to say, but my teeth got in the way. It's a very interesting product, which I believe that we need to keep an eye on, and others, please have a look at it and try and get involved. It's something new in our hobby. Don't be put off because it's something new, because I remember talking to people and they were saying SSB was bad news back in the 70s when everybody was running AM.
Absolutely.
Now everybody runs SSB, so
that's true. We wouldn't be here where we are right now with all the technology and I just mentioned SDR technology and really great things that we could not think of, not even dream of a couple of years ago. Now it's readily available. It doesn't cost a fortune, and it is very usable and brings the hobby further. And I mean, if our fathers would have actually just been sitting in the museum, we wouldn't be here with all this new technology right now. And so therefore I encourage everybody to keep up the good spirit and keep up the curiosity for new things, explore new things, play with new things, because that's amateur radio and that's what it's all about.
You're dead right, and I can't have said it better. Listen, Michael, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you,
Most
Martin.
appreciated.
Thank you, listeners.
Thank you. Okay, I'm with Chris, G4IFX.
That's me.
That's you.
Yeah.
And you're a member of the 6 Metre Group, aren't you? 6 Metre UK Group.
I am the chairman of the UK 6 Metre Group.
Well, that's even better.
Aren't I lucky?
Aren't you lucky?
Yes.
So, Chris, tell us about the 6 Metre Group and what you do.
Right.
And what's happening at the moment.
Okay, well, we're the only group in the world dedicated to 6 metres that actually has an active membership and an active magazine and website and all the rest of it. We have about 650 members at the moment, about 2/3 in the UK and the rest of them all around the world. And we're here to promote, obviously, the 6 Metre Group, but more to the point, 6 metres.
Yeah.
Because there's too many people around who like to go on HF and think that 6 metres is dead, and it's not.
No, it certainly isn't. I mean, I must admit, I was telling some of the guys at the club the other week about 6 metres, and they said, Martin, never heard anything on it, never one thing or another. And then one of our co-presenters, who's not with us today, I'd said I'd worked a number of stations, and he went home, worked a number of stations all over Europe, and said, hang on a minute, I was only running 5 watts. So it was like, he said, you can understand why you call it a magic band.
It's about being in the right place at the right time.
But when it opens up, 6 metres is brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, and as we say on here, it's never going to be easy. No. If you want to go and work stations every day, go on 20 metres. Although you'd have a different problem.
Yeah, you have to fight the contesters.
Yeah. But if you're in the right place at the right time, especially over the summer, May, June, July, August, you can work the world, or at least around Europe, with a very simple antenna.
Yeah, and as I say, I can certainly confirm what you said. I run a 6 metre halo when I go portable, and often work at least 2 or 3 countries. So in that time of the year.
But the worst thing we can do is sort of say, I turn the rig on once a week, 10 minutes, there was nothing there, I turned it off again. That's not going to work.
Yeah, and the other thing is you have to call. If you don't hear anything, maybe there might be half of Europe waiting for somebody to call. Somebody's got to put the call out sometime.
Yep, absolutely.
And it's surprising how often a dead band isn't dead. So, so tell us a bit more about the 6 metre group, this UK 6 metre group.
The group, well, we've been in existence since 1982. So that was before 6 metres was released in the UK. In fact, we were virtually the first country to have 6 metres in Europe.
Right.
Anyway, partly through RSGB's efforts, but also because we were sort of there promoting it. And that led to the first permits, we were allowed to operate outside TV hours.
Yeah.
Maybe you're too young to remember
No,
that.
I remember 405 line TV.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was still running then.
Yeah.
And I had one of those permits, and that all led to the general release of the band in 88.
Right. Okay.
And now, virtually every country in Europe
has
is on 6 meters, and most amateur radio transceivers have 6 meters. That would have been a dream in those days. Yeah. But now it's easy to get on the band.
It certainly is, and there's no excuse for not using it, because now the television reception's moved off of that, the old VHF television reception. There's no reason why you wouldn't want to.
And you can get a beamer, a 3-element beam or something, and they're not that big.
No.
And they're perfectly serviceable for working around Europe. 100 watts, 5 watts. I've got one of our members, he's got DXCC with less than 5 watts.
That sounds brilliant. Sounds brilliant. So,
you just have to put the effort in.
Yeah. So if somebody wanted to join the UK 6 metre group, how would they go about doing it?
Well, they can come and see us here at Friedrichshafen, of course, but I guess by the time this goes out, it'll be after that. Our website is the best way in.
Yeah.
www.uksng.org.
Right.
And you'll find all the details on there. You'll also find lots of information about the band. We have our DX desktop, which sort of tells you what's going on now. And you can join online and either join us as a digital, an online member, if you like, 10 quid or 10 euros, special offer. We did almost the same thing these days, of course. Which is that you download the magazine.
Yeah.
And then if you want the printed one, 15 quid.
That's not bad.
Four times a year.
That's very good.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we're an international podcast, listeners everywhere. You've mentioned international listeners can join you?
Yeah, absolutely. We have, I think in the US we have about 70 members or something like that. We have a US country manager who collects sort of money there, although quite a lot of people join us online anyway. In the Netherlands, Denmark, Germany, plenty around Europe, and then odd ones around the world. And we actually sponsor DXpeditions to persuade them to take a 6 meters, but more to the point, as proper 6 meter operator, and also fixed stations around the world and beacons around the world.
So that's brilliant.
We're just trying to promote the whole thing.
Yeah, so that's brilliant. So, as I say, thanks very much for giving me your time. I mean, I know I walked up to you, shoved the microphone in your hand and said, please talk to me. But thank you very, very much for that,
Pleasure.
Chris. Thank you.
Cheers.
Well, everyone, that wraps up this episode 244 of the ICQ Amateur Ham Radio podcast, and our final part of our roundup on the Friedrichshafen Ham Radio show. Hopefully, these last few episodes have given you a real good flavour of some of the product services, groups, etc. that were at the show. I know certainly Ed, Chris Howard, and yourself, Dad, I know you really enjoyed the show, and we're already planning for next year. So certainly, we'll be looking forward to that and going next year. And certainly, my flight is already booked to go next year. So I look forward to catching you guys at the show. I think slightly earlier next year, around about June 2018. So we'll look forward to them. We'd like to thank Philip Heckinbottom again, VK6 Alpha Delta Foxtrot, for his donation. Thanks very much for that donation there. And as always, we'd invite you to get involved with us by visiting the website www.icqpodcast.com. If joining the Facebook group, sign up for the e-newsletter, Twitter feeds at Colin Butler and at M1MRB. Wednesday we'll keep you in touch with all the latest amateur ham radio news to say that we'll be working on from now. So, Dad, we've got the hotel booked for next year's show. As I say, certainly I'm looking forward to joining because there was such good feedback, I think, from this year's show. And certainly I know that's something that you'd certainly echo, wouldn't you?
Yeah, very much so, Colin. The one thing, though, you missed one important, vital member of the team this year.
Ah, the Mrs. B. Mrs. B.
Mrs.
Yes,
B was there. Mrs. B was there. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Whether she comes next year or not, I don't know. But certainly it was good fun. And yeah, what did I actually enjoy most about the show? I suppose you were going to ask me. And I think it was just a good all-round show. We were well received by everybody. You know, it's a lot easier to talk to some of the other societies and manufacturers that we don't see in the UK. That was quite nice, being able to go and talk to the president of the Austrian Radio Society or the top man at the ARRL. So all those sort of things were good. And there was a lot of small stands around. And when you're wandering around, don't just walk by the small stands. Sometimes it's worth just to stick your head on and say hi. And there were a few we didn't record, but we had lots of interesting chats with people. And I remember a Japanese guy we spoke to, Chris and I, and he'd spent a lot of time in the UK, and he knew some of the Cambridge Ham boys and one thing and another. So there's a lot of socialising goes on at Friedrichshafen. It's not just about seeing the latest kit, but a lot of interesting stuff there, and you kind of do get to see prototype or the kit that's just about to be released. They're just about to release it in the UK or throughout Europe. So interesting stuff, and you can also do a lot of socialising, I'd suggest, Colin, which is also good.
True. Well, our next time we're all together with the orange T-shirts on is at the Newark Ham Fest, which is at the end of September, beginning of October, up there in Newark in Nottinghamshire. So I say anybody in the north of England or travelling up to the Ham Fest, we look forward to seeing you at that show. Certainly, I say don't be frightened of us. Say guys in orange T-shirts are always more than willing to come along and shake your hand and hear about your tales on the hobby. So certainly feel free to give us a shout then.
Colin,
yes,
there's one major problem with that.
Tell me.
Well, 2 years ago, we were the guys in the orange T-shirts. Surprisingly, the number of people wear orange T-shirts now at ham races in Friedrichshafen, So if people were looking for us with orange T-shirts, yeah, we were there. But there were quite a lot of other people who had orange T-shirts on as well.
Okay, so if you spot anyone with orange T-shirts and orange microphones, come along and say hello to us. There you go. There we go. We might need to change colour. We'll have to have a think about that one.
Oh, no.
Well, that just about wraps up the show here. So all we're left to do now is to make Mrs. B a well-earned cup of tea for the sound engineering which done for you in Friedrichshafen. And obviously, hope everybody enjoyed the extra show we released last week to cover the Friedrichshafen interviews quickly. And more importantly, we're doing this all again in a fortnight's time, won't we?
We certainly will, Colin. Okay, Colin, I'll go off and make your mum a nice cup of tea and find her a biscuit and wait for her to come in from work.
No problem. 73's all, see you in a fortnight's time.
73.